Welcome to my review of the 4K Ultra HD HDMI video capture card. This is an external capture card that you can hook up with USB 3.0, and it includes a fairly lengthy USB 3.0 cable, which is a USB Type A to Type A male connector on both ends, but it does have the option to hook this up to a USB Type C laptop, which is great to see that the dongle adapter is kind of built into the cable itself. I got this unit to use with OBS, so I will test out all the functionality, especially the color accuracy reproduction, the latency that the unit has in terms of like the lag and stuff, in order to be able to get the video out, because it does do HDMI pass-through. On the front of the unit, it does have the male USB 3.0 Type A connector that you can hook up the included cable to. It also has connectors for monitoring audio as well as passing in additional microphone, which is really nice to see because especially with things like screencasting, this is a great all-in-one unit, and that's kind of like the best feature that I like about it, is that I can hook up both the headphones to do monitoring as well as connect up a microphone and be able to voice over the screencast without having to worry about configuring any additional kind of software complexity about that. But and on the bottom of the unit, you do have the two HDMI 4K 60 Hz connectors, but not necessarily capturing 4K 60 Hz. The top of the unit also lists that it supports YUV2 color signal with 60 Hz and HDCP and EDID, which is really nice to see because then you don't have to change your monitor resolution. It'll just automatically pick up that you connected up a 60 Hz monitor or an ultra wide, and it'll be able to figure that out. And here's kind of the most important aspect of the user manual. It lists all the variety of resolutions that is compatible on this particular unit, and especially for ultra wides, that will be a bit of a limitation on this particular capture card, and you can't really capture it at that resolution too. So for 60 frames a second, you really want to drop down the resolution to 1080p in order to be able to get that smooth 60 FPS. Kind of what the unit looks like once you have all the cables plugged in. It's great to see that it works with a variety of different devices, and it's kind of a plug-and-play solution, especially on Mac, Windows, and other kinds of machines. You have your HDMI input and output. Note that it doesn't include any kind of HDMI cable, so I'm using my own HDMI cable, and I've also plugged into a pair of microphones and an inline mic, and as well as my headphones. And the only cable that's included is the USB 3.0 cable, and so I plugged that in, and this is kind of what the unit looks like. It's pretty neat and compact. So it measures just 4 inches, 4.25 inches or so. But it does have cables that stick out on both sides of the unit, so there's a little bit of a downside on it, but so it does seem to work in terms of HDMI 2.0, but again, you can only capture it at 4K at 18 frames a second in OBS. But it's nice to see at least the ports are actual HDMI 2.0, even though the manual only mentions 30 FPS for ultra wides. So I have the unit hooked up with OBS Studio, and it does show up as YUV422 as a macro silicon USB 3.0 UVC compatible video device. So that's nice to see. It'll work across kind of any system that you're running with Windows and Mac and other kinds of systems. And it also shows up with resolution of 1080p, which you can run, and that resolution gives a bunch of different frame rate options, noticeably 60 FPS, which is something that I really like, but it does let you go up to the full resolution if your display supports it, and but I don't necessarily see ultra wide resolutions out of the box on this unit, so that is a slight bit of limitation. But if you do upscale it, let's say you have 1080p display connected and you upscale it, it does let you recapture it at like 18 FPS, but again, it depends on your system and configuration. But overall, I really like the frame rate options and that it does work quite well with very limited noticeable lag, less than 300, 500 milliseconds, which is pretty good for a USB 3.0 video capture device for screencasting and stuff. Right, so I'm done testing out the 4K Ultra HD USB 3.0 HDMI video capture card. This external unit is super portable. It's just 4 inches by 2.5 inches, give or take, and it includes a USB 3.0 cable with a built-in adapter for USB Type-C so that you can use it on your laptop, which is really nice to see. And the fact that it has the headphone monitoring output and the microphone input makes it super easy without having to configure extra stuff to be able to simply do voiceovers and over your screencasting. And overall, I tested this with OBS and I really liked the performance of the unit. The color reproduction was good. I wouldn't say it's perfect, and it's not really intended for gaming, but for like screen capturing, for video calls and that kind of stuff, this particular all-in-one HDMI capture card does work quite well. In terms of the performance of like not really seeing any kind of artifacting that much, and the USB 3.0 is a real USB 3.0 port, so that is really nice to see because it does have that high bandwidth to be able to capture and transfer the video feed over the UVC signal, and it works Windows and on Mac OS. So overall, super portable and compact unit. Really happy with it.